Imagine a 9-year-old child getting out of bed in the middle of the night, packing a backpack, and walking alone down a dark highway in the middle of a storm, with no one knowing why. This is the baffling true story of Asha Degree, a little girl who vanished on Valentine's Day 2000, and whose disappearance stunned an entire country. On February 14, 2000, Asha Degree, age 9, was sleeping in her bed in Shelby, North Carolina with her younger brother. Her family checked on her around 2:30 a.m., and she was there, asleep. But when her mother returned around 5:45 a.m. to wake the children for school, Asha was gone. Her backpack, already packed with clothes, was missing too. Nothing about this fits what we expect from a child that age. Around 4 a.m., 2 motorists reported seeing a small girl walking along North Carolina Highway 18 in heavy rain and wind, the direction away from her home. One of the drivers actually got out and turned back to check on her. But when he approached, Asha ran into the nearby woods and vanished, the last confirmed sighting of her alive. When her parents realized she was missing, they called police immediately and a massive search began. Authorities scoured the woods, fields, and roadsides, but no trace of Asha was found at first. Her loved ones described her as shy, intelligent, and not a runaway. So why did she leave, and why at 3:45 a.m. in a storm? That question would haunt both investigators and her family for decades. Months later, Asha's backpack, still packed, was found about 30 miles away along the same highway where she was last seen. It was wrapped in 2 black garbage bags. Inside were items that didn't belong to her, including a Dr. Seuss book from her school library and a boy band t-shirt, raising more mystery than answers. For years, dozens of tips poured in, but none led to her. In 2015, the FBI formally joined the case and offered a reward for information. And in recent years, including into 2024 and 2025, investigators executed search warrants and identified possible connections to a local family, though no arrests have yet been made. Asha Degree's disappearance isn't just a story of a missing child, it's a puzzle with clues that don't add up. A backpack packed like she planned something. Walked alone during a storm. Ran when approached. Her bag turning up 30 miles away. Items inside that don't make sense. Never heard from again. And to this day, no one knows what really happened to Asha. Some believe she was abducted. Others think she may have been struck by a vehicle. But no definitive answer has ever been confirmed. In speech bubble she would be 35 years old today. And investigators say someone out there may hold the key to solving the mystery of Asha Degree. The road Asha walked that night wasn't a quiet neighborhood street. It was Highway 18, a long, dark stretch cutting through rural North Carolina, with no sidewalks, no streetlights, and heavy truck traffic even before dawn. And that's where the story turns from strange to chilling. At around 3:45 a.m., a truck driver heading north noticed something that made him slow down. A small figure, walking alone, in the rain. At first, he thought his eyes were playing tricks on him. But as he drew closer, he realized the figure was a child-sized girl, wearing light-colored clothing and carrying a backpack. This wasn't a teenager. This wasn't an adult. It was a child. Concerned, the driver turned his truck around to check on her. That moment matters. Because when his headlights came back toward her, the girl did something no one expected. She ran. Not toward help. Not toward a house. But straight into the woods bordering the highway. The trees swallowed her whole. The driver searched briefly, calling out, but the rain, darkness, and thick brush made it impossible to see anything. Fearing he might scare her further, or that something worse was happening, he left and reported what he saw later that morning. Shortly after, another motorist driving the same stretch of Highway 18 saw the same thing. A small girl, walking south, head down, backpack on. He slowed, stunned by what he was seeing. When he passed her, he checked his rearview mirror. She was still walking. 2 witnesses. Independent accounts. Same location. Same time frame. This confirms something investigators couldn't ignore. Asha Degree left her house alive. And she was alone. That night wasn't calm. It was cold, windy, and raining heavily. Asha was afraid of storms. Her family had said so repeatedly. Yet she walked nearly a mile from her home into the darkness, without a coat, without a flashlight, and without telling anyone. That detail alone has haunted investigators for over 2 decades. The most unsettling question from the witness accounts isn't why she was on the road. It's why she ran when someone tried to help. Investigators have debated this for years. Was she scared of strangers? Had someone told her never to talk to anyone? Did she believe she was already in trouble? Or was she running towards something she believed was waiting for her? because running into dark woods during a storm is not a child's natural instinct, unless she thought the road was more dangerous. When police organized search teams later that day, they focused heavily on the area where witnesses said Asha ran off the road. Dogs tracked a scent briefly, then lost it. No footprints. No clothing. No signs of a struggle. Just silence. It was as if she had vanished into the trees. From this moment, the case split investigators and the public into camps. Some believed Asha was lured out of her house earlier that night. Others believed she left on her own, intending to meet someone. A darker theory suggested she may have encountered someone after running into the woods. But no matter the theory, one fact stayed constant. That highway was the last place anyone ever saw Asha Degree. By morning, search helicopters circled the area. Volunteers flooded the roadside. Law enforcement canvassed nearby homes. Yet nothing explained why a 9-year-old girl walked into a storm, or what happened after she disappeared beyond the tree line. The road gave up its witnesses. The woods gave up nothing. Welcome to Coziness Stories. If you enjoy calm, immersive stories like this, take a moment to subscribe and make yourself at home. 18 months passed. No sightings. No phone calls. No ransom. No trace of Asha Degree. Then in August 2001, a discovery quietly changed everything. Nearly 26 miles north of where Asha vanished, a construction worker clearing land near Turner Upholstery in Burke County noticed something strange inside an old storage shed. It wasn't buried. It wasn't hidden carefully. It looked left behind. Inside the shed were items that did not belong there, and did not belong to an adult. When investigators arrived, they cataloged what they found. A pencil, a marker, a hairbow, candy wrappers, and most chilling of all, a new Kids on the Block t-shirt. The shirt was not Asha's, but the rest of the items matched things a young girl would carry. This was not a random dumping site. Someone had spent time here. The shed was far from Asha's home, off a rural road, not visible from nearby houses, nowhere near Highway 18. A 9-year-old could not realistically walk there alone. That meant one thing: Asha had been transported. Investigators tested the items. Some DNA was found, but it didn't match Asha. Any family members, anyone in law enforcement databases at the time. The evidence sat in storage, waiting. This wasn't a momentary stop. The candy wrappers suggested someone stayed long enough to eat. The shirt suggested someone brought clothing that didn't belong to Asha, or gave it to her. The hairbow suggested she had been there alive. That detail still haunts the case, because it implies Asha wasn't taken and immediately killed. She was kept, at least for a while. After the shed discovery, investigators quietly stepped away from the idea that Asha had simply run away and gotten lost. The distance alone destroyed that theory. So did the location. So did the evidence of shelter. This was no accident. Why that shed? Why leave items behind? Why bring her there at all? And if someone took her, why has no one ever come forward? Police expanded the search radius. They re-interviewed witnesses. They re-examined tips. But no suspect emerged. The trail went cold again. Except for one thing. The items from the shed were preserved, because investigators believed technology would someday catch up. 4 years, the shed remained the last place connected to Asha Degree. A place where time stopped. A place that whispered she had been there, and then vanished again. 4 years, investigators believed the shed was the last physical trace of Asha Degree. They were wrong. In February 2001, nearly a year after Asha vanished, a man was digging on his property in Burke County, close to a roadway used frequently by long-distance drivers. His shovel hit something unnatural. Plastic. Wrapped tightly. Sealed deliberately. When it was opened, investigators immediately understood what they were looking at. It was Asha Degree's backpack. The backpack wasn't simply tossed aside. It had been placed inside 2 garbage bags, carefully wrapped, buried. This wasn't careless disposal. This was intentional concealment. Whoever buried it didn't want it found. The contents were deeply unsettling. Among the items, school papers with Asha's name, personal belongings confirmed by her family, and clothing that did not belong to her. One item stood out immediately. A Dr. Seuss book, McElligott's Pool, checked out from Asha's school library, a book she should have returned days earlier. It suggested something chilling. Asha may have believed she was coming back. Investigators also found a new Kids on the Block nightshirt, clothing inconsistent with what Asha was last seen wearing. This matched items discovered in the shed months earlier, which meant the backpack and the shed were connected. and whoever had Asha controlled her belongings. The backpack was found far north of Asha's home, off a major roadway, a location unlikely to be chosen at random. This suggested someone familiar with the area, someone comfortable traveling long distances, someone who wanted the backpack gone but not destroyed. Why keep it? Why bury it carefully? Why not burn it? Those questions still haunt the case. Investigators believe the backpack burial was not about practicality. It was about control. The person responsible didn't want Asha's belongings discovered immediately, but didn't want them gone forever either. It was a decision that felt deliberate, calculated, almost ritualistic. When Asha's parents were informed, hope surged and shattered at the same time. The backpack proved Asha had survived beyond that night, but it also confirmed something terrifying. Someone else had been with her. After the backpack discovery, the FBI deepened its involvement. Behavioral profilers reviewed the evidence. Theories shifted from accident to predatory abduction. Yet still, no suspect, no arrest, no explanation. Asha's backpack became the most powerful piece of evidence in the case. Not because of what it showed, but because of what it implied. Someone out there knew exactly what happened, and chose silence. If this story is drawing you in, subscribe now to Coziness Stories to enjoy more tales like this every time you return. By the time investigators pieced together the backpack, the shed, and the highway sightings, one uncomfortable question sat at the center of the case. Why would a 9-year-old leave her house at 3 a.m., calmly, quietly, and prepared? This wasn't panic. This wasn't rebellion. This looked planned. When Asha left her bedroom, she didn't grab toys. She didn't take money. She didn't take extra clothes. She packed school items, a library book, and personal effects she valued. That choice matters, because it suggests intention, not escape. Children who run away usually act emotionally. Asha acted purposefully. Investigators quietly explored a theory they've never ruled out: that someone had spoken to Asha beforehand. Not in person, but possibly over the phone, through a note, or through a trusted intermediary. Someone she believed. Someone who convinced her she wouldn't be in trouble. She would return. She would be safe. That explains the library book. That explains the lack of fear. That explains why she left without waking her parents. Days before Asha vanished, her basketball team lost a game. Some reports mention Asha was upset afterward. Others say she handled it well. But one detail stood out. That night, her coach had spoken about perseverance, about not giving up even when things feel impossible. Some investigators wondered if Asha misunderstood something meant for motivation, or if someone later used that idea to manipulate her. Asha was afraid of storms. Her family said so repeatedly. Yet she walked into rain, wind, and darkness without hesitation. That only makes sense if she believed something important was waiting. Something urgent. Something worth the fear. Children don't follow strangers into storms. They follow people they trust. That trust could have been built slowly, over time, through reassurance, through familiarity. And once that trust exists, fear disappears. There was no evidence of a break-in, of struggle inside the home, of coercion. Asha wasn't taken. She went willingly, at least at first. That fact reshaped the entire investigation. If Asha was lured, it means someone watched her routines. Someone knew her family schedule. Someone knew when the power went out. Someone knew she'd be alone in her room. This wasn't random. This was targeted. Years after Asha Degree vanished, one detail refused to fade. It wasn't the backpack. It wasn't the shed. It was a car. A car that multiple people described independently, without knowing what others had seen. In the days after Asha disappeared, investigators received tips from motorists who had driven along Highway 18 in the early morning hours. At first, the tips sounded ordinary. Then the details lined up too closely to ignore. Different drivers, different times, same stretch of road, and the same description. Witnesses reported a small green car, possibly from the early 1970s. Some said it looked like a Ford Thunderbird or a Lincoln Mark IV. Boxy, older, distinct, parked or moving slowly along the roadside, near where Asha had last been seen walking. This wasn't just any vehicle. The timing mattered, the location mattered, and the behavior mattered. Cars don't idle on rural highways at 4 a.m. without reason, especially not during a storm. No witness ever saw Asha get into the car. No one saw a struggle. But investigators believed something crucial. If Asha accepted a ride, it likely happened after she was already exhausted, cold, and scared. That changes everything. A frightened child doesn't need force. They need reassurance. Asha walks miles in the rain. She hides when cars pass. She's cold, hungry, alone. Then a familiar voice, or a friendly stranger who seems safe. Someone who knows her name. Someone who says the right things. A warm car suddenly feels like rescue. There were no reports of yelling. No reports of panic. That suggests Asha didn't believe she was in danger. At least not yet. Years later, investigators publicly asked for help identifying that vehicle. By then, the car may have been sold, repainted, scrapped, or hidden away. Time erased leads. Memory faded. And silence settled in. If the car was involved, it means Asha's disappearance wasn't an accident. It wasn't exposure. It wasn't a simple runaway. It was an encounter. And encounters leave victims, not footprints. Who owned that car? And why was it waiting on the road that night? Because if someone was there to meet Asha, they didn't stumble upon her. They were expecting her. For more than a year after Asha Degree vanished, the case went quiet. No confirmed sightings. No arrests. No answers. Then, nearly 18 months later, something surfaced that reopened every wound. In August 2001, a construction crew working along Highway 18 miles from where Asha was last seen, uncovered something buried near a rural property. It was wrapped carefully, protected from the elements, intentionally hidden. Inside was a child's backpack. The backpack was identified as Asha Degree's. But what shocked investigators wasn't just that it existed. It was what it contained. Clothing not belonging to Asha. A new Kids on the Block t-shirt. A book she never checked out from the school library. Items that didn't match her life. Didn't match her habits. Didn't match her home. This wasn't something lost in the woods. It wasn't dropped during a struggle. The backpack had been deliberately buried. Someone took the time to wrap it, transport it, conceal it. That requires calm. That requires intention. That requires control. The burial site wasn't random. It sat near properties with limited foot traffic. Places locals knew, but outsiders wouldn't. Someone familiar with the area. Someone confident no one would look there. Why include clothing that wasn't hers? Why include a library book she didn't borrow? Why not destroy the bag instead of hiding it? Investigators believed these items might have been used to mislead, used to stage confusion, or belonged to another child entirely. That possibility sent a chill through the case. Despite extensive testing, the backpack yielded no usable DNA, no fingerprints, no trace evidence. It was as if whoever buried it knew exactly what they were doing, or had plenty of time to clean it. Once the backpack was found, tips poured in again. Then, nothing. No follow-up discoveries. No second break. Just the same empty space where Asha should have been. Before the backpack, there was hope Asha might have wandered off. After the backpack, that hope faded. This wasn't a disappearance without direction. It was a disappearance with a cover-up. If someone buried Asha's belongings, it means they expected time to pass. They expected the search to end. They expected to get away with it. And so far, they have. Stories feel better when shared. Subscribe to Coziness Stories and join a space made for quiet moments and deep stories. As the years passed, the disappearance of Asha Degree stopped being headline news. But it never stopped being an open wound. By the early 2000s, massive ground searches had ended. Helicopters stopped flying. Volunteer numbers faded. What remained was quiet, methodical police work. Investigators re-interviewed witnesses, re-examined timelines, reviewed tips that had once seemed insignificant. Nothing cracked. Every path led back to the same dead ends. As often happens in unsolved child disappearances, attention turned inward. Asha's parents were scrutinized. Friends, neighbors, teachers. But no evidence ever pointed to wrongdoing inside her home. Her parents passed polygraphs. Their accounts never changed. Their grief never wavered. Law enforcement publicly cleared them repeatedly. That mattered, because it forced investigators to accept a harder truth. Whatever happened to Asha happened after she left her house. Despite the lack of progress, the case never officially went dormant. Every year on February 14th, new flyers appeared. Vigils were held. The FBI reissued appeals. Asha's face never disappeared from databases, because something about this case refused to make sense. Cold cases usually fade because the facts become blurry. This one didn't. The facts stayed sharp and disturbing. A child leaving willingly. Witnesses on a stormy highway. A shed miles away. A buried backpack. Items that didn't belong to her. Too many pieces, too little clarity. That imbalance bothered investigators deeply. Privately, some investigators began to consider a grim possibility: that whoever took Asha wasn't a stranger passing through, but someone local, someone who blended in, someone who never raised suspicion. Those are the hardest cases to solve, because the offender doesn't run, they stay. As DNA science advanced through the 2000s and 2010s, evidence from the backpack and shed was preserved, waiting, not for answers, but for the right moment. Because investigators believed one thing with certainty: someone made a mistake, and someday technology would catch it. Every cold case has a moment investigators replay. In this one it was simple: that stretch of Highway 18, the rain, the child who ran into the woods. Because once Asha disappeared from view, everything that followed was silence. For more than a decade, thousands of tips poured into law enforcement. Most led nowhere. But one detail, ignored, dismissed, then quietly resurrected, refused to disappear. Years after Asha Degree vanished, investigators revisited an early statement from a local child. At the time it sounded impossible. The child claimed they had seen Asha getting into a vehicle, not that night but days later. The description didn't match panic. It matched familiarity. Children's memories are fragile. Investigators initially believed. The timeline didn't align. The distance seemed too great. The account conflicted with accepted assumptions. So the tip was archived. Not erased. Just set aside. As years passed, something shifted. New evidence from other cases showed how often early child witnesses were ignored, only to be proven right later. Investigators reopened the file. This time they didn't ask if the child could be right. They asked what if they were. The child's description echoed something investigators had heard before. A car. Older. Boxy. Unremarkable to adults, but unforgettable to a child. Suddenly, the Highway 18 sightings, the buried backpack, and the shed location felt connected, not scattered. The biggest objection had always been geography. How could a child seen near Shelby end up dozens of miles away? The answer was simple and terrifying. She didn't walk. If Asha was seen alive after the night she vanished, it meant she survived the storm. She survived the woods. She survived the first encounter. And if she survived those, then someone made a decision later. Investigators began to consider that Asha may have been held somewhere temporarily. Not a dungeon, not a basement, but a place that felt safe enough to lower her guard. That theory explained the shed, the mixed clothing, the lack of immediate violence. It also raised the worst question of all. Why not keep her hidden? Why not release her? Why risk moving her across counties? Unless something changed. Unless someone panicked. Unless someone realized they were about to be discovered. Quietly, without press conferences, investigators upgraded portions of the case. New maps were drawn. Old names resurfaced. And one truth became impossible to ignore. Asha's disappearance wasn't a single moment. It was a sequence. As investigators revisited old tips and rebuilt the timeline, their focus shifted in a quiet but significant way. They stopped asking who passed through Shelby that night. They started asking who was already there. For years, the dominant theory centered on a random predator. A passing motorist, a truck driver, someone who saw opportunity in the dark. But random predators leave patterns. They leave other victims. They leave noise. Nothing like that surfaced. No similar crimes. No linked cases. No repeat behavior. That absence forced a reevaluation. Whoever interacted with Asha knew things a stranger wouldn't. The layout of her neighborhood. The fact that her parents wouldn't notice her absence immediately. That she shared a room with her brother. That the power had gone out earlier that night. Those details weren't public at first. They were intimate. Investigators quietly reviewed people who had routine contact with Asha. Adults who worked with children. People who lived along Highway 18. Individuals with access to outbuildings, sheds, or rural properties. Not suspects. At least not yet. Just names that made sense geographically and socially. The most unsettling realization was this. If Asha trusted the person she encountered, no one would notice anything unusual. A child walking with an adult doesn't raise alarms. A child getting into a car with someone she knows doesn't cause panic. Normal is the perfect disguise. That small storage shed took on new meaning. It wasn't remote enough to be accidental. But it wasn't obvious enough to draw attention. Someone knew it existed. Someone knew it was rarely used. Someone felt safe bringing a child there. Investigators began to suspect the encounter didn't end that night. That Asha may have been moved. spoken to, possibly reassured. That theory explained why no immediate violence evidence was found. It also explained why the trail ended suddenly. Crimes involving control often end when control is threatened. A witness, a schedule conflict, a change in behavior. Something forces a decision. Investigators believe that moment came days later, not on Highway 18. If this theory is correct, it means someone lived for years knowing exactly what happened to Asha Degree. Went to work, attended events, spoke to neighbors, and carried the truth alone. As the case approached its second decade, investigators prepared for something they believed was inevitable. A break wouldn't come from confession. It would come from time. And time was finally catching up. Years passed, then a decade, then two. But unlike memories, evidence ages differently. And as technology advanced, the Asha Degree case quietly entered a new phase. Cold cases don't reopen because of hope. They reopen because time changes the rules. DNA technology improves. Behavioral analysis evolves. Witnesses age, retire, or pass away. Loyalties weaken. Secrets get heavier. What once felt impossible becomes inevitable. Investigators began reconstructing Asha's final hours using modern tools. Enhanced mapping of Highway 18. Updated weather modeling. Reanalysis of witness statements. Vehicle movement probability models. Small inconsistencies emerged. Not enough to accuse, but enough to narrow. When Asha's backpack was found years later, buried, double-wrapped, it sent shockwaves through the case. Not because of what was inside, but because of how it was handled. That wasn't panic. That was deliberation. Someone took time. Someone wanted it hidden, not destroyed. Someone expected it to be found someday, just not yet. Behavioral experts noted something chilling. The act wasn't impulsive. It wasn't chaotic. It followed a pattern of containment. This suggested a controlled environment, someone methodical, someone accustomed to secrecy. That profile eliminated many early theories. Investigators noticed something else. Over the years, tips came from the same small geographic pockets. Different voices, same neighborhoods. Each tip insignificant on its own. Together they formed a shadow. Detectives often say guilt doesn't disappear. It leaks through changed routines, emotional distancing, alcohol abuse, obsessive behavior, sudden confessions framed as hypotheticals. Time pressures people in ways fear never could. The public often asks the wrong question. Not why hasn't there been an arrest, but why hasn't there been a mistake? Someone has avoided one for over 2 decades. That takes discipline, and discipline eventually cracks. Law enforcement has never closed the file. Not quietly, not officially, not emotionally. New detectives inherit it. New analysts review it. New technology tests it. Because some cases refuse to be buried. One truth has never shifted. Asha Degree did not disappear by accident. She left for a reason, and someone else knows why. More than 2 decades after Asha Degree walked into the dark, her case remains open, not as a formality but as a warning. Because this story was never just about a missing child. It was about time. Asha did not wander off aimlessly. She did not get lost. She did not disappear into the woods and vanish by chance. Every confirmed detail points to human involvement. A planned departure. Witness sightings along a highway. A shelter used briefly. A vehicle waiting. A backpack buried with care. Those are not accidents. Those are decisions. Somewhere between the rainstorm and the buried backpack, a choice was made. A moment when someone realized this had gone too far. What happened next is the silence we've lived with ever since. Most missing person cases fade because the trail disappears. This one doesn't. It stops. Abruptly. As if someone closed a door and locked it. That kind of ending only happens when control replaces chaos. Law enforcement has said it plainly and repeatedly. Someone out there knows exactly what happened to Asha Degree. Not suspects. Not theories. Not possibilities. A person. A living, breathing person who remembers that night clearly. People imagine fear keeps secrets hidden. But in long unsolved cases, it's usually something else. Loyalty, shame, protection, or the belief that time erased guilt. It never does. Time doesn't forgive. It waits. As years pass, people change. Voices weaken. Hands shake. Memories surface uninvited. And eventually, silence becomes heavier than truth. That's when cases like this break open. Not with sirens, but with words. Justice wouldn't erase the past. It wouldn't undo the walk into the rain. But it would give Asha her name back. not as a mystery but as a truth. And it would finally answer the question her family has lived with every day since 2000. What? This case is still active. Tips are still reviewed. Evidence still waits. And investigators still believe the same thing they believed from the beginning. Someone will talk. Because secrets don't survive forever. And neither does guilt. Asha Degree walked into the dark alone. But she was not alone forever. And one day, whether through confession, evidence, or time itself, the truth will step into the light. Thank you for spending this moment with Coziness Stories. Subscribe now, rest easy, and I'll see you in the next story.